ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the PC Boys Podcast. I am your host, Logan Locke. So, it has been quite some time since I've done a podcast episode for you guys, and with the Daredevil, trailer dropping yesterday, I wanted to talk about that, of course, give my thoughts and opinions on it, how I think the whole series is going to play out, what they're going for, So I figured, I'd make another video for you guys. And of course, as you can tell, we're doing a video this time. It's just without the background and everything. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to use OBS until I upgrade my actual PC. So for those of you that don't know, I currently use like a standard run-of-the-mill PC. It's not a gaming PC or anything like that. And I used to be able to use OBS completely fine on here, and then all of a sudden I just can't get it to work, and it's always lagging my videos. So I'm going to have to start doing podcasts like this until I get a gaming PC, and then from there I will go back to using OBS. So, I know it's a little bit of a dip in quality in terms of, the background and presentation, but that is why. It's just because OBS is not working with me, unfortunately. But that is not going to stop me from making videos and getting the content out there that I want to get out there. But anyways, without further ado, let's get into Daredevil. So, yesterday when the trailer released, I was super pumped, super excited. I knew it was going to come out relatively soon. And the trailer opens up with us seeing Matt and Fisk in the diner that was in The Defenders, and I believe it was introduced in Daredevil Season 2, I could be wrong, but I think it was introduced in Season 2 with Matt and Elektra chatting with each other. And you have Fisk, who is now Mayor, which if you watch the Echo series, you will of course know that at the very end in like the post-credit scene, Wilson Fisk was watching the TV and it was talking about the mayor race for New York, and it seems like Fisk managed to win that, which they're not going to show. They're going to just kind of be like, yeah, he won that, so he's mayor now, which is, fine, whatever. I don't really need to see that whole thing go down. And Matt has seemingly stopped being Daredevil. That is probably the most interesting part about the opening scene for the trailer, because, well, we saw him in She-Hulk as Daredevil, and we saw him in Echo as Daredevil. Now, Echo, obviously, we can place that being, at least when Daredevil showed up, before the Hawkeye series. So, definitely back more in Daredevil's past, so I don't think that one's much of a concern. The She-Hulk timing of everything is a little bit interesting. If we had to take a guess, She-Hulk takes place before Daredevil Born Again, I would have to say, because he does have that yellow suit later on in the trailer. Unless the beginning of Born Again is going to be, like, before the events of She-Hulk, and then the later events is after the events of She-Hulk. But even then, it still wouldn't make sense because, he would still have to be, Daredevil to get that suit and whatnot. So, the Daredevil timeline right there is a little bit confusing for me because it's like, okay, well, he had the yellow suit, he was in She-Hulk, but now he's not Daredevil in Daredevil Born Again, so that makes me think either A, he got this stuff and did the She-Hulk stuff before the intro to Born Again, or it was like an in-between space, which would raise more questions for me personally than answers. So I think the first, option that I talked about would be the better way to go about it. But we'll see. And then, of course, we going through this trailer, we just kind of, have this dialogue between Matt and Fisk going on in the background while we get to see, like, a bunch of characters, obviously, Foggy and Karen returning, which is great. Originally this series was supposed to be like a reboot, so it wasn't going to be connected to the Netflix stuff. They were just going to bring back Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio to play their roles, and everybody else was going to be replaced by somebody new, and they were going to do something different. And I'm glad that Kevin Feige, after Bob Chapek came down as CEO in Disney, and when Bob Iger went back in, Kevin Feige was able to go back in and say, yeah, this isn't good, I don't like what's going on, let's scrap the whole entire show, reboot it, connect it to the Netflix stuff. And that is honestly for the better, because when I heard about that first initial, version of the show that they had filmed, I was like, this is gonna suck. This is going to be a continuation of Marvel just making terrible movies and terrible shows. And now that the trailer came out and they, redid everything from the ground up, it's like, okay, now we're seeing some primetime Marvel here. And watching this trailer, we get to see things like Muse. Muse looks great. I'm very excited to see what they do with Muse storyline-wise, because Muse in the comics, for those of you that don't know, is an artist, except he paints art with people's blood, body parts, etc. So he's a very sadistic character, very dark character. But he looks great here, and they're clearly not shying away from that. I mean, there are images in the trailer of, like, people hanging from the ceiling. We see, with Daredevil fighting Muse in the sewers, which I believe is a reference back, to the comics, because I believe Daredevil and Muse fought in the sewers in, some of the comic runs back around when Muse was introduced in 2016, I think it was around. But anyways, you see, like, a guy strapped to the table, and, looks like Muse, mutilated him, or, like, opened him up, or did something with him. He's obviously dead. He ain't moving. So they're clearly not shying away from the violence and the blood in this series whatsoever. There's also scenes later on with more, bloody violence, and whatnot. And I'm glad that they're sticking to that dark tone that made the Daredevil series very memorable, because not only was Daredevil dark in the way of, like, the action and the brutality of the action, but also the storytelling. It was, touching on a lot of dark themes, things that happen in the real world and whatnot, like corruption, things like murder, trafficking. Like, it touched upon a lot of those, darker issues. And ultimately, I like that about Daredevil, because it's grounded and real. It's something I wish they kind of did with Spider-Man. Obviously, Spider-Man's not a rated R character per se. I mean, some of his storylines can be attributed to, rated R territory if you were to adapt it, from the book to, live action. But, Spider-Man as a character deals with the ground level of Marvel, so he sees his own fair share of messed up things, and just the nature of grounded Marvel has always been the thing that I loved about Marvel. As a Marvel Comics fan, like, if you were to look at my comic collection of the things that I read back when I was in school, a lot of it was ground level Marvel. You have Daredevil, obviously Spider-Man, my top two. Things like The Punisher, another, great, Reed franchise as well. I didn't really read a lot of Iron Fist and Jessica Jones. They personally just were not my kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, for me personally, like, those three characters in particular, like, Daredevil, Punisher, and Spider-Man, being, like, the three ground level pillars that I used to read, at least that I can think on the top, off the top of my head. They were very well done stories, and I always liked those stories more than something like a Guardians of the Galaxy, which, by the way, I've never read a Guardians of the Galaxy comic in my life. The movies was my full introduction into that world, but when it comes to comic characters, that I actually, read into, things like, Captain Marvel, even the Secret Invasion stuff, which is, on Earth, but, you can also attribute it to, comic level stuff. Even with, like, Doctor Doom and the Fantastic Four, you can get kind of cosmic with that too as well, a little bit. Or into, like, the mysticism and stuff like that. Like, I was never into those other aspects of Marvel. Like, yeah, some of the storylines were cool in what they did, but for me personally, I always just preferred ground level Marvel, because it's relatable, it's something that, is very real, and something that could happen in the real world. And this trailer just absolutely nails that feeling from the original Daredevil and other ground level stories. So I'm just happy that we're getting a rated, well, TVMA, because it is a TV rating and not a movie rating, but a TVMA Daredevil show from Disney. And it does, and I'll be honest with you, watching this trailer, I was like, this doesn't even feel like a Disney show. Because I ended up seeing the footage that they ended up showing off last summer, I believe it was. And this trailer and that trailer were slightly different. Like, they showed some things in that other trailer that were not shown in this trailer. Some extended scenes, some different scenes. Like, they showed, Miss Marvel's father, he is going to be in this series, at least for a brief second. I think it's from the bank scene. So there will be MCU connections in the show for sure. I mean, obviously in the trailer you saw the Rogers poster and stuff like that. But most of this trailer was a self-contained series. Because, yeah, there is some connections to the MCU, but overall they're more focused on the story of what's going on in Daredevil. And I like that Marvel is now branching out and expanding the different parts of the Marvel universe that they didn't really dive into. Like, on the street level side of things, prior to, Spider-Man, there wasn't really much. And I'm not even counting the old Daredevil stuff, because at the time that wasn't Marvel Studios done. It was done by ABC, Netflix, and Marvel Entertainment, which was a completely separate business entity from Marvel Studios. And then once that whole contract was, basically expired, Netflix and all those rights got reverted back to Disney. They put the original Daredevil show on Disney Plus, and of course, Disney and Marvel Studios ended up getting the rights back to using those characters, and here we are with the continuation of those original 3 seasons on Netflix, except now under a different, show title. And the simple reason for that is just simply because it's now owned by a different company, essentially. And that's why it's like, instead of it just being Daredevil season 4, it's Daredevil Born Again, just because it has to do with like rights and copy, kind of issue things. It's like when you reboot a franchise, or like a different company gets a franchise, they'll redo a whole new like reboot or something, and or just rename the show or whatnot. But with Marvel Entertainment and Marvel Studios, they both were under Disney and ABC. ABC's owned by Disney and everything. So it's all under the same roof regardless. So that's why it's not like, oh, you can't use these characters or anything like that. Like, they have the full ability to. It's just renaming the show just makes more sense. Like, they can continue the story, but just renaming the show and rebranding it for Disney Plus. It just, it makes sense, at least from their business perspective and whatnot. But originally, like I said, it was going to be a whole different show and not connected to the Netflix stuff. So that's another reason why originally the name got changed to something different than just Daredevil Season 4. But yeah, the music in this was really good as well. They took that original Daredevil theme and they used an actual organ, which made it sound much better in my opinion than the original. I love the original theme, so the fact that they managed to make it sound better is kind of crazy to me. I believe they ended up bringing on, like, the writers and stuff from Punisher to do this series as well, which is honestly a big W, because at the end of the day, the Punisher was one of the more, what was the most brutal Marvel show on Netflix outside of Daredevil, and I'm just excited to see where they kind of take that with this. And the fact that Marvel is actually, and Disney are not afraid to finally go in the TV mature R rating territory is great, because adults need their own Marvel shows to watch that isn't just kid-friendly, because the major issue I've had with Disney since I've been watching all their content is that it's all kid-friendly, okay? And I was a kid once, obviously, and I get superhero movies are, big for the kids, but you need certain characters that can do those films. Other characters you need to make rated R, like Punisher has to be rated R, Daredevil, rated R. I mean, you could probably get away with a PG-13 Daredevil, but because there's already an established lore, world, and story that they are continuing with, it would throw everything off to make it tonally feel different. Spider-Man as a character, I think that could teeter the line of honestly being on both, and let me explain what I mean. Spider-Man has dark stories that could go into rated R territory, okay? If you really wanted to put them on screen, you could. Spider-Man as a character, I feel like that could show up on street-level rated R shows for a little bit of time, and also be in all the PG-13 stuff. I think Spider-Man is one of the more versatile characters in that way, where you could put him in both worlds and it would work. The major issue for Spider-Man, at least in the MCU's case, is that Spider-Man in the MCU hasn't really had a super dark movie outside of No Way Home. And No Way Home, in my opinion, is kind of just like a fan service movie like Deadpool and Wolverine, but with a better story. But Spider-Man needs a straight-up ground-level movie. And unfortunately, guys, I don't think the MCU Spider-Man or the MCU's Peter Parker is ever going to get that. I don't think we're ever going to see a normal ground-level Spider-Man movie at all. I think everything Spider-Man related these days or going forward is going to be some crazy multiverse or big scope film, because that's what Sony wants, and that's going to be like the second half of this podcast. I'm going to rant about the Spider-Man situation a little bit. But I'm happy for Daredevil, man. I mean, they nailed it with the trailer. I'm so excited. I was watching it the other day, and and I saw the 23 stuff and the stuff they showed last summer, and I was like, okay, some of this looks familiar, some of this is different. But it looked great. It looked great. Action, music, the shots, the lighting. It feels like a continuation of the Netflix series. And I also was watching people do reactions to the Daredevil trailer. And a lot of people were, people that normally say Marvel's dead and Marvel, the MCU, everything's gonna go downhill. Even those people were like, this looks good. They're like, I'm cautiously optimistic. We know how Disney is, but this trailer looks good. It's very solid. And that says a lot, right? I mean, when the people that normally dog on Marvel all the time, right, for justifiable reasons, because even I dog on Marvel a lot these days because they ruined the greatness they built up for 10 years all the way up to Endgame outside of a few projects. Ultimately, when those people are saying this looks good, that means you're on something. It means Disney's cooking and they need to continue and stick to it. Hardcore. And I believe they can do it. I 100% believe that Disney is capable of doing this. It's just, is it their willingness? Now, the only thing I am a little bit concerned about is how much religious, symbolism and Matt's faith, how much is that going to play a role into the series? That is the one thing that was not shown much in this trailer. Now, I know in the other older Daredevil trailers, not a lot of it was shown a crazy amount, but one of the core integral things to the Daredevil franchise, outside of its action, hallway fight scenes, character chemistry, and the relationships with all the characters on screen, is Matt's faith. Now, Daredevil is a Catholic, that is just who he is as a character. He is a Catholic, and he struggles with the sin of rage, and, it's kind of this weird dichotomy where you have Matt Murdock, the defense lawyer by day, blind defense lawyer by day, who's a man that's trying to fight, for justice under the law, but then at nighttime, he lets his rage out, or the devil out, dresses like a devil, and beats the crap out of criminals. And Matt also feels very compelled, that he's called by God to defend people as Daredevil, but also feels cursed with the rage that he also has internally, from his childhood. And, there have been some great, YouTube deep dives going into the psychology and philosophy of Daredevil and Bullseye basically being the same character from at least in the show's interpretation. But except the major difference between the two is Matt had faith and people there to support him that kept him from becoming a character like Bullseye ended up becoming. So it's one of those things where if they don't add Matt's faith in this adaptation, it will definitely hurt it, because Matthew Murdock, being a diehard Catholic, even though he's, a vigilante that beats the crap out of people and literally takes on the persona of the devil, it plays well with the dichotomy of his character. But if they just completely omit or don't spend a lot of time or a good amount of time on his faith and how that is affecting him and what he's doing and the story he's going through in this upcoming series, it's going to affect the show in a negative way. Now, I know at the very end of the trailer, right, there was mention of, I was raised, to believe in grace, but I also believe in retribution. Yes, okay, those are some religious themes right there in the trailer at the very end. And then earlier on with White Tiger, when he was putting on his cowl or his mask, there was a cross in the background. So there is some religious symbolism in here, but my question is how much are they gonna dive into it? Like, are they gonna do what the Netflix series did, or are they going to just throw some lines in that are religious-like, but they're not going to have Matt go to church, or go to confession, or go to Father Lantom's grave, these are things that we like to see Matt do, right? Because they play a role to his character. And many people that have watched the Daredevil series, and a lot of people regard the Daredevil series as one of the best TV pieces ever created in the history of television. And that's not just me saying that. That's a lot of people's opinion. If it's either the best or one of the best ever. The way that they deal with religious symbolism and Matt's faith and stuff in the show enhances the story. It's not like a preachy thing. And me being someone who's Christian, I love seeing the fact that they, in the Netflix series, took Matt's faith and they utilized it to enhance the story. And they did a great job with that without being preachy or anything. So for that way, if people aren't, faith-based or religious, they actually enjoyed the show because it enhanced the story and it didn't feel like it was preaching to them. So it managed to strike a balance where both people of faith and people not of faith looked at it and said, wow, they did a great job with that. And it served for both parties to enjoy the story even more, which is great. And I hope they could do that with this one too. Like I said, there's not many characters in the Marvel Universe where, like, faith is, like, a ginormous part of, their character and their story arc. I mean, obviously, you have Daredevil, who is a diehard Catholic, and if I am correct as well, I think, oh gosh, his name's slipping my mind right now. He's, Nightcrawler, the X-Man, yeah, Nightcrawler. He also, I believe, is a diehard Catholic as well. So he has some very strong, faith, even though his character is literally designed like a demon. So it's one of those things where there are some characters in Marvel where it's like a very crucial thing to those characters. But for Matt Murdock, it is something important, just as important as the hallway fight scenes, the, grittiness, the darkness, the, characters that have great relationships and chemistry. Matthew's faith is just as important as all those things because it's integral to his personal character. And seeing Matt struggle with his faith and everything that's going on always played a role. Because in Daredevil Season 3, one of the major, through lines of that series outside of, is Matt's faith. Faith had a big part of Daredevil Season 3, probably more than even the first two seasons, because in that third season, Matt and God were in a, not in a good place with each other, where Matt was basically just refusing to, he just rejected God constantly, was trying to be Daredevil on his own merits and stuff. And by the end of the series, he has a chance to kill Wilson Fisk, which has kind of been his whole goal throughout that season, and he chooses not to. And it was thanks to, him and God kind of coming back together in their relationship that they did have that kept Matt from going over the edge. And it's very much implied that not only with Matt's faith and friends and support that he had around him, that kept him from the path that someone like Bullseye went on, where Bullseye as a kid lost his parents. And he didn't have a support network outside of one therapist that he had. And because he had no North Star, as he called it, he ended up going psychotic and killing people with his rage issues and whatnot. So there is a big part when it comes to this Daredevil series where I hope that they use Matt's faith to enhance the story like they did in the prior 3 seasons. For some people, they care about it. For some people, they'll be like, I don't care, I'm not religious or whatever. But there are going to be people out there that agree with me. Especially people that love Daredevil as a character, understand that that's one of the more crucial parts to his character in general. And it makes him very different than most other MCU characters. Let's take the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, right? My favorite Marvel hero of all time. Spider-Man is a character who is not religious per se. I know in some interpretations, like Aunt May's religious and whatnot, but Peter himself has never been the guy that is diehard religious in any sense of the word. He's a scientist, man of science. But Peter always has, this mentality of, redemption, giving people a second chance and having responsibility, doing the right thing, the weight of the world on his shoulders, right? And although Peter's not a religious character, all those things that he fights for and that he holds in his mind are very inspiring, right? And Peter Parker is very much the everyman's hero. He has a normal life like everybody else, but he's also a superhero, so it kind of hurts his personal life. And he deals with that struggle. With Matt Murdock, like Peter, he's a normal guy. I mean, yeah, he's a lawyer. I mean, that's a pretty hard thing to do in real life, to become a lawyer. But at the same time, Matt Murdock and Peter Parker kind of have those similar struggles of being a vigilante and being a normal person, and how that vigilante life bleeds over and affects the personal life of their, alter ego. And ultimately, it's a nice dichotomy, but then adding on top of that, right, with Peter Parker basically having some of Matt's ideals, Matt's faith, plays a role into Matt's character specifically. You see, with Spider-Man, he didn't get to, like, the I'm gonna kill people or not hold back till the black suit was introduced, and then in later story arcs, there were some stories where, Spider-Man didn't hold back, and, in one story, he punched, basically either punched off or completely severed, Kingpin's jaw. He didn't throw quips. He was angry. Straight up angry. Destroyed Kingpin's jaw with one punch. Wasn't holding back. And, for Peter, it's a little different because he doesn't have that, faith that holds him from going over the edge. It's ultimately Uncle Ben. And it's always Uncle Ben, and, with great power comes great responsibility. That line, what that means keeps Peter from going over the edge. For Matt, that's his faith, right? He beats the crap out of, criminals with rage every night as the devil of Hell's Kitchen, but his faith is what keeps him from going into killing the people. And he also, just like Peter, believes people can be redeemed, that people can be saved from the bad things that they've done, which is something that Peter and Matt both share. But I guess you could say they're anchors to not breaking their no-kill rule or going over the edge. For Matt, it's faith, and for Spider-Man, it's Uncle Ben's, with great power comes great responsibility. And, ultimately, those are important things to both characters. I think Daredevil and Spider-Man are very similar in a lot of ways. I mean, Spider-Man easily, in my opinion, could be a religious character like Matt. Probably not on the levels of Matt, because Matt's a diehard Catholic. Peter would probably be more of like a Protestant kind of thing. But Peter and Matt, Spider-Man and Daredevil have worked many times as vigilantes together to stop crime because they're both in New York. It wouldn't surprise me if Peter at some point does, like, take on some kind of, faith, in his journey. Not necessarily on Matt's level, but it would be another anchor for Peter, I think, too, on top of Uncle Ben's words. And then, I don't know, if you throw in Uncle Ben and Aunt May were also religious, and then Peter's also, starts taking that journey at some point, it gives him another anchor on top of with great power comes great responsibility. So, yeah. I know we're kind of getting a little bit on a ramble. Happens, I just start talking about stuff. I'm like, oh, this is pretty interesting, and these ideas and stuff. But, yeah. All I can say about Daredevil Born Again is I'm really excited. It looks really good. I have nothing more I can say about it. But let's talk about Spider-Man. I know some people love to hear my rants. So for those people that love to hear my rants, you're going to love this one. Okay. So, Spider-Man 4 right now, in my perspective, is in development hell. Okay? This movie has had every single possible, like, prediction or insider scoop as to what's happening with this movie. I've heard everything from Knowles and Venom is going to be in it to it's going to be a street-level movie, that all the Spider-Men are going to be in this movie, that, frickin' the Hulk is going to fight Spider-Man. I've heard so many things about this movie. And I'll be honest with you guys, I have wanted to do many podcasts talking about Spider-Man 4, but I don't even know what to talk about because nothing makes sense around Spider-Man 4. Let me explain to you guys what I think is going on behind the scenes. Marvel Studios wants to do a ground-level Spider-Man movie, okay? Sony does not. And let me explain why. Marvel Studios wants to build up the ground level of the MCU. They haven't really done it. It's all been cosmic, mystical, and multiversal. We haven't had some grounded, like, street-level Marvel characters yet until Daredevil comes into the fold, and, of course, Echo, back at the beginning of last year. So we don't have much. We haven't had much in terms of these series, okay? So Marvel wants to continue with that grounded game. And not to mention, we haven't seen Scorpion since Spider-Man Homecoming, a character that was set up and never paid off and never used. Marvel Studios wanted to use Kraven the Hunter, matter of fact, for Spider-Man No Way Home and make him the main villain. And guess what? Sony was making a spin-off movie, so therefore, Marvel could not use that character. Yeah. Bullcrap, I know, very stupid, not happy about it. But anyways, they can use Scorpion for a ground-level Spider-Man movie, right? Have Wilson Fisk hire Scorpion to frame Spider-Man or to go after Spider-Man, right? It works. Wilson Fisk is going to become, he's already mayor in Daredevil Born Again. It all makes sense. Yeah. Unfortunately for, us Spider-Man fans, Sony is like, well, Tobey and Andrew made a lot of money. Let's do another big multiverse movie. And that's what Sony wants. Now, I don't know if they're planning on using Null, bringing Venom into the fold, if they're trying to bring the Spider-Man back. I don't know. And let me tell you guys what I think. If Spider-Man 4 is not a ground level movie with Daredevil, or ground level to some extent, I will refuse to watch that movie in theaters. I am a Spider-Man fan. I don't mind watching Spider-Man team up with the Avengers. That was one of my biggest dreams back in the day when I saw him in the Civil War trailer. I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to finally get this. We got it in Avengers Endgame and Infinity War and even Civil War. We see Spider-Man alongside the Avengers. I want Spider-Man now to be on his own. No Tony Stark help, no Nick Fury help, no Doctor Strange help. Just Spider-Man. Maybe a little bit of Daredevil. That's fine. Because I love Daredevil, and Daredevil doesn't have to be a mentor to him. You can just help him, as an equal. So that's what I want. Ground-level Spider-Man film. With Scorpion as the main villain, or at least in there, right? Because they've already set him up, haven't done anything with him. If the Spider-Men all come back in another Spider-Man movie, I'm not going to watch it. Venom? Okay. I can take Venom. But not the other Spider-Men. Leave them for Avengers Secret Wars Doomsday. Leave the Spider-Men to the big Avengers crossover movie that's coming down the road, okay? I don't need to see Tobey and Andrew multiple times before I get to the Avengers movie where it's like, oh, well, they're back. Seeing them in No Way Home was cool, but at the same time, it's like, don't beat a dead horse, please. Sony doesn't care too much for that. Some of these rumors like Spider-Man vs. Hulk, I don't believe it. Makes no sense whatsoever. Will Null and Venom be in it? Possibly. Other Spider-Men? Possibly. I just want a ground-level Spider-Man movie, me personally. That's it. That's all I'm asking for. It's all I have been asking for. Ground-level Spider-Man movie, introduce Scorpion as the main villain or one of the main villains, and have Daredevil help Spider-Man. Pretty easy, pretty simple, nothing too crazy about it, okay? Simple, easy stuff. Then, we take a look at Sony, and Sony's over there like, okay, multiverse stuff. Let's do that. And that's where I think they're at. I don't really know what's going on with Spider-Man 4. And guys, I keep up with the news. I know I don't do podcasts anymore all the time when a new big piece of news comes out. I'm just not that kind of channel anymore. I don't have the time to do that. Number one. And number two, I'm not going to talk about rumors and theories unless there is some credibility behind it because it's just a waste of time in my opinion. And I'm not trying to gain clicks on my channel. I'm a small channel. I do this for fun. I don't make money off this. If I'm going to get on here and talk to you guys about something, I want it to be based on something that I know is true and either out of excitement or because I'm really mad and I got to get my thoughts out about it. Right. And when it comes to Spider-Man, I just don't know what's going on with this film. It just sounds like it's in development hell. It's been said that all these different things are going to happen under the sun. There is no proof or evidence of any of it happening or coming. And they're kind of just throwing stuff at the wall at this point. I'm like, okay, well, this is really stupid, but they're just throwing everything at the wall. So it is what it is. At the end of the day, I think that there is potential for this movie to be good whenever we hear something about it. But they need to be very careful. Because you're going to lose a lot of the fan base if you just start throwing in a bunch of nonsense. Nobody wants that. They want Spider-Man. It's pretty simple. The audience is asking for a very basic request. Just give us ground-level Spider-Man. Save Venom and all the other big stuff for the big Avengers multiverse film. Why not? The other issue is behind-the-scenes contracts. Basically, Sony is at the point where they are a stone wall and Marvel Studios is trying to play ball with them and they are just not listening to anything Marvel Studios is saying. That's the other half of the problem. Sony is basically just saying, no, we're going to do what we want to do. And that's about it. And Sony wants to get more money from the box office cut than they were prior. So yeah, at the end of the day, Spider-Man 4 to me just seems like a mess. It just seems like a complete mess behind the scenes, what's going on. And I'll be honest with you guys, depending on how they go about making this film depends upon if I watch it in theaters or not. I'll watch it eventually, but I'm not going to go rush to the theaters to watch a Spider-Man movie if it's not ground level. Because grounded Spider-Man's all I want. I've seen Spider-Man fight aliens. I've seen Spider-Man go to space. I've seen all the crazy stuff. Just give me normal Spider-Man now. I'm ready for normal Spider-Man. I want to see a Spider-Man 2 like movie. Because, let's just put it like this. Peter's at the perfect place in the MCU now where he can get a Spider-Man 2 like story. And it can be great. Struggling with Peter Parker, being able to pay rent and have a job. And then being Spider-Man. It all works. And for the love of Lord, bring Black Cat in, okay? Now, let me explain why Black Cat is an easy seller to the audience, okay? I think all of us guys know why Black Cat is an easy seller to the audience, especially if you get the casting right. But at the end of the day, we need something to build Spider-Man towards the black suit storyline. If Marvel's going to do that, we need to get Spider-Man to the black suit storyline. How do we do that? Well, we already know with the MCU where it is now, everybody doesn't know who Peter Parker is, but they know who Spider-Man is, which, in my opinion, the logic between Doctor Strange being like, I can't do a spell where they'll forget Spider-Man, but I can make a spell for who forgets Peter Parker. That's some stupid logic, but we're going to disregard that just so we can get the point across, right? So, nobody knows who Spider-Man is, but they know of Spider-Man, that a superhero exists, that is Spider-Man. This works for Black Cat. Why? Because Black Cat doesn't care about the man behind the mask, at least originally in the comics. She cares about Spider-Man. The persona, the suit, Spider-Man is who she cares about. And Black Cat is a character that can be either a villain / ally for Spider-Man, and it throws in an interesting dichotomy for Peter. Because because there has been rumors, which I think are relatively credible, that now Peter's going to focus on just strictly being Spider-Man, as opposed to Peter and Spider-Man, it would make sense that a character who literally just loves Spider-Man, being Black Cat, and not really caring about who's under the mask, and Peter is embracing just being Spider-Man all the time, it would make sense why he would choose to date her. Number one, MJ's going to MIT, Ned's going to MIT, so Peter needs to get his mind off of Mary Jane. And in order to do that, dating somebody else or chasing somebody else, if you will, would definitely do that. So I think it's a very doable thing, okay? And then number two, Black Cat is a character that you could use down the line when Peter is in the black suit storyline to save him from the black suit. Let's say you give Black Cat a storyline. Maybe she's working with Wilson Fisk and with Scorpion. And the whole goal of why Wilson Fisk gets Black Cat or blackmails her, right? Actually, perfect idea, right? Wilson Fisk captures Black Cat's father and basically says, I need you to build trust with Spider-Man or else your father dies, right? Basically says, you do what I say or else your dad will die. So she starts working with the Kingpin out of trying to save her dad's life. And, she can still be like a famous cat burglar and stuff like that, right? You can still keep that in the mythos. And Wilson can obviously go on and explain, like, you have such talents at being able to, steal things and, are very fast and elusive or whatever, right? And that's why he chooses her and chooses to, basically ultimatum her. And then, so he sends her after Spider-Man. So her and Spider-Man, of course, meet. She stages a robbery or whatever, and Spider-Man swings in to stop it and stuff. But Black Cat kind of starts to be flirtatious with Spider-Man. She starts to kind of catch feelings for the guy, right? And so does Peter, but he's also confused about stuff because, Peter Parker, very complicated life. And throughout the story, Black Cat then ends up, gaining, Spider-Man's trust and stuff like that. And Wilson basically, has Scorpion, let's say, going out, committing murders or stealing money or doing whatever Wilson needs him to do. And basically, he's like, now that you've gained the trust of Spider-Man, I need you to lead him to an ambush where Scorpion will essentially kill Spider-Man. And then you can get that whole dichotomy with her where she's like, I want to save my dad, but I actually like this guy. Spider-Man's actually a good person and stuff like that. And she starts questioning, like, her life decisions and stuff like that, right? And so what ends up happening is Black Cat ends up foiling the plans of Wilson and let's say she leads Spider-Man to the trap. Spider-Man's fighting Scorpion, and the Scorpion gets the upper hand on him and is getting close to kill him, but then Black Cat decides to betray Wilson, fight Scorpion with Spider-Man, so Wilson kills, her dad. This leads Black Cat to wanting revenge, and then this is where Spider-Man and her kind of, have a little bit of a back and forth with each other. I mean, I guess outside of the part where he'd be mad, being like, wait, you led me here to die? Or something like that. But she could obviously give the explanation of like, well, my dad was in danger and stuff like that. And Peter, of course, wanting to do what's right, chooses, okay, I'm gonna, forgive you and stuff. Even though, it's pretty crazy. But I can understand, the situation that you're in. But basically now Peter is fighting Black Cat. Because Black Cat wants to kill Wilson. And Peter's like, we need to bring him to justice, yes, but not this way. So basically, the story will end up being like Wilson Fisk, either gets away or something, or gets captured and goes back to prison, or loses his mayorship or whatnot. And you can bring Daredevil in and have Daredevil fight Kingpin while Spider-Man fights Black Cat to save him or whatever. And basically, Spider-Man can be like, revenge and killing people isn't the right way. Trust me, I did that once, referring back to trying to kill Green Goblin. It won't make you feel better. And, matter of fact, like, I was in a situation like this and stuff. Basically being like, with great power comes great responsibility, and we need to use it, to help people. So then later on down the line, when Peter's consumed by the black suit and maybe he's gonna go off the edge and kill somebody, Black Cat can come in and kind of speak reason into him to get the black suit off of him and, like, get into his brain and knock some sense into him. Being like, you told me this one time, you stopped me from going down this path, so now it's my turn to save you. Like, they could take Black Cat in this next movie, right? Make it street level grounded and everything, build it all up, and then, basically have her be set up to save Peter in the future black suit storyline, which I think would work out perfectly fine. If I was writing the Black Suit Saga, I would start the writing for it prior to the black suit being introduced, 100%. And that's ultimately how I would do it, right? I think Spider-Man's ground level story is very basic and simple, as long as you get the elements right of, like, Peter struggling with his normal life and being Spider-Man. But if he is choosing to be Spider-Man and not focus on the life of being Peter Parker, Black Cat is the perfect fit as a love interest, as a villain option, right? Like I said, even if you bring in Scorpion to be the villain, halfway through the movie, then it becomes Black Cat, not because she's a bad guy, but because her and Peter's ideologies are clashing in terms of, like, the revenge arc. It makes a perfect fight at the end. And that's the thing. It would do service to Scorpion because he's been set up and they've done nothing with him. It would build Black Cat as a character. And it would build Spider-Man as a character and would even play a role into his future storylines once he gets the black suit and goes off the deep end. And that's the thing that kind of pisses me off about the way that they're dealing with Spider-Man. Let me explain this to you guys, okay? I understand a lot of people like MJ, Zendaya's MJ. I'm going to be 100% honest with you here. I have been dying to see Black Cat adapted into live action for so long now. And no, we're not going to talk about The Amazing Spider-Man 2's Felicity Jones as Felicia Hardy, the Oscorp assistant. No, we're not talking about that. Because that's not Black Cat. They could make Black Cat's story in this movie very well done and connect to a future Spider-Man movie when Peter is the black suit and she can be the one that helps save him from it. Black Cat needs to be involved, okay? Get Sydney Sweeney to play Black Cat. Get somebody, some good casting, anybody. Sydney Sweeney just comes to the top of my head, at least in terms of physicals, to play Black Cat. I mean, obviously, you know, she played Spider-Woman, briefly, I know, in Madam Web, but if you put her in the role of Black Cat, I think very well Sydney Sweeney can play the flirtatious girl that, you know, tricks Spider-Man and then just kind of is like, got what I want, now chase me. I think very much, you know, Sydney Sweeney can easily play that role. That's the thing about Black Cat, like, you don't need to make her character like this super in-depth thing. Like, it's as simple as, well, Black Cat loves her dad. Her dad is captured by Wilson Fisk, basically forcing her to use her abilities and her, you know, skills to assist him in whatever he wants, rather than her own. And if Sydney Sweeney is playing a character that's flirtatious and, you know, is making Spider-Man chase her, yeah, Sydney Sweeney can literally play that role. That's not hard. And that's the thing about Black Cat, right? Black Cat is not only a cat burglar, but she is just a flirt with Spider-Man. Even though they've had a relationship in the past, and I put relationship in quotations because it's not like him and MJ in the comics. It's very much a relationship based upon Black Cat likes Spider-Man, doesn't really care who's under the mask, always flirts with him, always making him chase her around. That's kind of what Black Cat does. And Sydney Sweeney can play that role. Anya Taylor-Joy could probably play that role too. I know that she was another rumored potential to play Black Cat. But I need Black Cat. Please, for the love of Lord, we need Black Cat. And the other thing too is, if you're gonna put Black Cat in the movie, can you make Black Cat look attractive? Is that hard to ask? Like, Catwoman was attractive in the most recent Batman movie, and she wasn't wearing any skimpy outfit or anything like that. The cat suit was very clean. It wasn't, you know, anything provocative. But they casted somebody that could play Catwoman. And with Black Cat, same thing applies. I mean, yeah, she's still going to need the jumpsuit. You could modernize it a little bit and stuff. But at the end of the day, right, even if you take a look at Marvel Spider-Man's Black Cat Cat's attractive in Marvel Spider-Man, and she's not wearing a cat suit like in the comics where, like, you know, her cleavage and stuff is showing. She was still an attractive character that felt like Felicia Hardy. Same thing when it came to the Spider-Man video games. And you can strike that balance of making a good Black Cat design and then have somebody play the character that makes it like, okay, this is Black Cat. And it's not hard to ask for. I mean, if you're going to make Black Cat, you better do Black Cat right, okay? You don't want to do the TASM thing or anything else, right? And that's the major thing when it comes to Hollywood today, is like when we talk about like sexualization of characters, right? Black Cat is one of those characters where it has already been proven you can make a Black Cat without having to make her look over-sexualized. Case in point, Marvel Spider-Man and Marvel Spider-Man 2. She's wearing a Black Cat suit that feels like Black Cat, and it's not overly sexualized, and she's still attractive. You can do it in movie form, okay? It's not hard. I mean, I know Marvel's going rated R-ish now, but I don't think a Spider-Man movie designed mainly for kids to go watch is going to make Black Cat look like how some people want it to look, right? Guys, if that's what you want, there's this thing called comic books, and there's plenty of them out there. So if that's what you're looking for, plenty of mediums for it. I just want Black Cat to be done justice, okay? I want the cat suit to look similar to the comics with, like, the fur and stuff like that. It doesn't have to be overly sexualized, but it needs to look like, you know, a Black Cat outfit. Something that's familiar, right? And then get an actress that can play that role to a T. Sydney Sweeney is just an easy one. And I know, like, I was listening to one of the people that I watch on YouTube who talks about, you know, castings and stuff, and they were like, you know, Sydney Sweeney hasn't really proven much to be, like, a great actress or anything in what I've seen. It's like, well, Sydney Sweeney doesn't need to play, like, some super crazy role to be Black Cat. She doesn't. She just needs to be likable and be able to flirt with Spider-Man and make him chase her. It's really about it. Is those three major things. You hit those three things on the head, and you're good. And it also takes a writing team. You can get the perfect outfit, you can get the perfect actress, but if the writing is bad, then good luck with that. But yeah, Black Cat is one of those characters along with Scorpion that I need to see in a Spider-Man movie because, dude, the fact that we haven't been able to see Black Cat, who I would argue is up there with Mary Jane in important female characters in Spider-Man's gallery, is crazy to me. Crazy. We got Betty Brant back in 2002, just after I was born, before we got Black Cat. And yes, Black Cat has made an appearance in the video games, but that doesn't count. Because Black Cat should be in the movies. She should be. Because, especially where the MCU is right now with Spider-Man, it's perfect. It is literally the most perfect time to introduce her. It's not just a contrivance of Peter has this other girl flirting with him when he's dating MJ, creating relationship drama. Sure, the girls would probably love that in the audience, but for the guys, we don't really care too much. But if you introduce her as the love interest when Peter and MJ are not together, when he's focused on being Spider-Man, and Black Cat only cares about Spider-Man and who's under the mask, then you can do it perfectly. And then all the girls are like, no, Tom is talking to this other girl, he's cheating on Zendaya and MJ, you know, there'll still be the girls out there freaking out like, oh my gosh, I can't believe Peter's doing this. But it works with the story of, you know, what's going on in the world of Marvel. You could even throw Black Cat, introduce her in Daredevil. I don't know, have Daredevil go and foil a robbery. And who is it? It's Felicia Hardy. Just tease it. I mean, you'd have to work that out with Sony, obviously, to do that because of the contract negotiations, but still. Sony, like, dude, doing Black Cat is not hard. And this is the perfect time that they can do it in the Marvel Universe. So, it's either kind of do it now or do it never. I would prefer now. That's just me. I'm just saying. But ladies and gentlemen, that has been the podcast. A long podcast, mainly because I'm just rambling on. But I hope you all enjoyed. If you haven't seen the Daredevil Born Again trailer yet, please go watch it. It's absolutely phenomenal. I will, of course, have the link tree in the description down below for all of our socials, from Twitter to Instagram. I posted on Twitter and Instagram the other day, the Daredevil poster. I don't really post much on there anymore. I just haven't had the time to sit down and do podcasting. I do 2 jobs. One of them's at the radio station, so I'm always busy in work regards for the most part. But I am going to try to do podcasts when I can. And, you know, it's nice. Like, I enjoy doing podcasting when everything works, right? Like, when OBS is not being an a-hole to me, I love to sit down and just talk and talk. And the editing's not really that hard. You know, just put some things here, maybe shorten this a little bit or cut that little thing out. It's not that hard. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I want OBS to work. You know, I want to be able to have my background. I want to be in the corner and be able to have my, you know, Twitter feed up and do that. But until I get a new PC, guys, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to really put my green screen or anything to use. But I will still make videos like this. I'll still have the intro and outro. That'll still, you know, be in there. But ultimately, yeah. It does suck because I want to be able to produce the best quality content for you guys, and unfortunately, OBS is like a good 50% of that. If OBS works, I can do everything I need to. I can be in the corner like most streamers and stuff. I can have my background. I can do everything that I need to do. Unfortunately, my computer, for some reason, is not cooperating with OBS. I don't know why that is. And I just don't think it's going to get resolved until I get a brand new PC. But until then, when I make videos, they will look like this. But thank you very much for watching. Hope you all enjoyed. And I will catch you all in the next one.